Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Lena's gonna look very sexy indeed, darling, like a pop star, darling. Now, guys, I love Whitey 18 and I love celebrities that are sexy, but some of them go like so over the top, and you're like, which I love, I love that. I mean, that's something that I like, but I'm an adult though, so I like that because I like those kinds of things. I like those kinds of things, but I find that some of them I'm like, holy, like remember when Nicki Minaj was wearing like a THONG, and I'm like, oh my God, it was like holy, and she was like bending down, and I'm like, holy, like that is like unbelievable that she would do that. And then I was watching, an interview with the CEO of YouTube, and she was like, yeah, some of these people do these things, but they're so popular that they are allowed to. But I'm like, well, I do see a gap there. I love the CEO of YouTube because she just allows me to do YouTube, and I have a PG channel. But I'm like, well, some people could become viral on videos like that. So why is it safe for one person to do and not safe for another, right? So there is a gap there. I do think that yes, sometimes it's really racy, and if you're unknown, I do see that might be a problem. But I mean, some of the people that are unknown look. I look way better than like Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. In my opinion, I do look better than both of them, and so. But I wouldn't be allowed to do something risque because I've tried it as a speedo and bodybuilder in my other channels, and they got taken down, which I want them to be brought back, which they might. But I'm like, I knew I was like I was like, I mean, I know I'm better looking than those two because I wouldn't date those two. Like, people that I date are better looking, so I know for a fact that I'm better looking. And so when you see that, and then people that have mentioned, I do see some other people saying that in their channels, and they're talking about how, they've had their channels taken down because of things like that. And they're like, how is it safe for one person and not safe for another? But they did explain it on with the CEO interview on YouTube, saying, that some people are so famous and have catchy songs that they allow it. And so, which makes sense. I mean, the thing is, I mean, as a young person, you have to see some of that because you're gonna start dating eventually, and you're gonna start meeting people, and you want, like, when you get older, you want to have some education on that kind of thing because you can't just be completely blind and never exposed to any of that. I mean, obviously some is too much, but you know what I mean. Like sometimes you, as a kid, when I was a kid, growing up, in my younger days, I was, you end up seeing things that are, that you have to see because you're gonna date people eventually. So you have to see some things that are not like, it's not like, risque to the point where extreme, but you have to get exposed to some of it only because you're gonna date when you get older, so you have to learn about some of it. I think some of it is going too far, some of it's risque, too much. Like Madonna's all for, with Madonna, she's all for people doing. She talks about how she pushes the envelope because, when you see her, she's beautiful and she's so sexy that you see that, and it's really good for people because they learn about, they discover things about their own sexuality that they wouldn't have known without her. So they discover these things, and of course we do need people that are like that to be like learning from, because she was like, when I was a kid, I learned from, I grew up with Madonna. Like Madonna was someone that I watched and grew up with, and I learned how to be an adult based, like, with date relationships based on her. So I mean, like, it's good to have something, some exposure to it. But when you see like, and yes, I understand that Madonna is Madonna. So when you see her do these things, well, she was saying that violence is no good. Like kids are exposed to violence and all that, and different things like that. But they don't worry about that. But when it's sexuality, it is bad. And of course, I agree, it is bad. You shouldn't be exposed to it at a young age. But you need to see something. You can't, not something, not necessarily like something too taboo, but you have to learn somehow. Like with Madonna, growing up with Madonna, I did learn about sexuality because she was pushing the envelope in that direction. And I think without Madonna, I wouldn't have learned how to even date. I mean, I would have been completely clueless. I mean, without her, I wouldn't have seen anything. So, it is something that you grow up with some people and you need to learn somehow. And I mean, but I agree. We have to keep children safe. We have to make sure children don't get exposed to things that are negative, that they're exposed to something that's overly sexuality. We can't get them to be exposed to too much. Obviously, nothing would be ideal, but I mean, like I said, like with Madonna. I mean, Madonna was Madonna. Madonna was like totally provocative and totally seductive and totally out there. And I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, I think, like I said, but I mean, I do agree that if everybody puts out content that's risque and everybody puts out things that are really bad that children shouldn't see, it's going to be too much and it's going to be chaos. I mean, I do understand YouTube's philosophy on these things. Now, when you watch the WAP video from Cardi B, Cardi B looks worse than I do, and so with Cardi B being like in with PASTIES, she has those on, and it's like her outfit is like crazy risque. You're like, oh my god, but it's Cardi B, so they allow. Which I mean, I can agree to some extent, but then I'm like, but I'm gorgeous, Like I can't imagine why I couldn't do slightly risque things. I don't do any risque things on my PG channel because I want to make sure it's safe. But I guess when I'm famous, I could do more risque things. But I'm like, how is it fair? But I mean, and I mean, to me, it doesn't bother me really. I'm not gonna be worried about it. I just want them to be one of my previous channels. I might not even do another risque video again. I just think it's unfair that my channels get taken down when other people might not have that have happen. Um, I mean, the one thing that I can think of with my channel though is that almost every single video was risque, to not to an extreme, but to some extreme. Like it was like really kind of over the top for. But I would want them to put them under adults. I wouldn't want them to put them under for children to see. I would want them to set it aside to adult, uh, because that's where it should stay. But see, I've seen Buff Corral, Buff Corral, the singer, and he has videos where he's in his UNDERWEAR, and they are still up, and I'm like, I can't believe it. Like they weren't even that good. I'm like, oh my god. I mean, he's a gorgeous guy and everything. So I don't know, but I understand that sometimes they have to they have to make sure they take it down, and I totally get that. I mean, if I'm a millionaire off this channel and it's all PG, and I'm like a billionaire maybe, or at some point do really, really well, like hundreds of millions or whatever, then why would I care, right? Like, I mean, to me, it wouldn't make a difference. But anyway, thank you, bye.